Well, let's start. Welcome to Engineering Waterloo Ready Co-op session. Today, July 22nd. Welcome you all to the University of Waterloo. My name is Linda Davis, and I am a career advisor for the Center of Career Action here on campus, or virtually as things go right now. I'm happy to be here today to speak with you on how to build good resumes and how you can prepare for co-op from today on to the time that you start your job search. I work day in and day out with co-op students involved in securing their first co-op job. I do this in one-on-one appointments, in workshops, in the classrooms. With engineers, career advisors serve as your in-class instructor for what we call Co-op Fundamentals for Engineers, or CFE. And each one of you will be enrolled in this course. And we're working very diligently at this time, actually, to move this into an online course so that it's all ready for you when you start here in September, that first week of September. I've also developed a good understanding of the challenges and rewards engineers face throughout their co-op and have strengthened my motivation and dedication to helping students succeed in getting that first job. One of the main challenges engineering students face in the co-op career is not having enough time to get schoolwork done and find work all at the same time. It is hard. The good news is that there are lots of resources available to help you, and one of the key resources are senior engineering students. They have gone through what you will go through this coming year, and they make themselves available to help you and guide you through it. Today, we have two students here to start helping you. We have James Williamson and Jillian Toy, who will join me today in getting you started. But before we start, I'd like to read the University of Waterloo's territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we live and work on the traditional territory of the neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. The University of Waterloo is situated on the Haldeman Tract, the land promised to the Six Nations that includes 10 kilometers on each side of the Grand River. A little pre-work, I understand, was given to all the students, and this, hopefully, you've had a chance to work through this and get yourself prepared with your resume. I believe it's available for you on the Engineering Waterloo Ready Learn site. Sorry about that. Under the week of July 20th. This is an awesome aid that will get you ready to start to building your first resume. Many of you may have already created resumes, but this one is starting to focus more on that co-op element to figure out what skills do you have? What are the skills that employers are looking for? So the format for today's session, we'll do a quick recap of the pre-work. You'll meet upper engineering students and they will talk to you about their first resume. Which is one thing I always suggest to students is to, as you proceed through the program, hang on to that first resume and then compare it on your other terms so you can see how you've grown from first year all the way up to third or fourth year. We have a Q&A here to help you prepare for your first co-op work term. Again, as we mentioned earlier, please submit your questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Do these questions all the way through the talking session, and they may come up later as well, but then we'll answer them starting at about 3 o'clock. It'll be a variety of typed responses and some questions that are read aloud and also answered in the same fashion. Before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge and appreciate that you'll have questions regarding Waterloo's COVID response. The campus has moved to online instruction in order to limit exposure to our students and faculty for the fall 2020 term. Please continue to monitor the university's most up-to-date information related to COVID-19 at uwaterloo.ca/coronavirus/. Questions and answers. 30 minutes of presentation and 30 minutes for Q&A. Use the Q&A box at the bottom, not the chat, to ask your questions. Waterloo staff are on the webinar and they're ready to respond. Social channels and follow emails addresses will be provided at the end of the presentation. If you have or you're experiencing technical difficulties, The presentation is being recorded and it'll be available within a week on the same website where you're registered for the webinar. Please follow-up questions can be forwarded through any of the social media email addresses, which will also be given to you at the end. So with further ado, I'd like to introduce James Williamson. James will talk a bit about the program that he's in, how he's gone through co-op, discussing the various, his work experiences and the skills, transferable skills that he acquired. So James, take it away.
Hey everyone, I'm James. I'm going into my 2B systems design term. Well, you can see them listed here. My 3 co-op positions, this one included. The first one was at the Ministry of the Attorney General, Public Guardian Trustee. I was a systems support officer. That one was pretty cool. Working down in the city, I got not only like to experience like my first actual like engineering position, but I got to be in the city, be with the culture and stuff like that. That was really cool as well. From that job, I learned a lot about helping people. I had a lot of IT duties, and so I had a lot of time helping people one-on-one, fixing problems, and it really helped me with communication and troubleshooting and organization as well, because we had to document everything that we did. The second one, I worked at a small company in Stouffville, 4GL Solutions. There I worked mostly as QA. And so again, it was a lot of troubleshooting and a lot more independent work. And so that one definitely helped me with troubleshooting, critical thinking, and also prioritization, learning how to get the job done when you need to. And then the most recent one, of course, is this right here, helping incoming students with coming to Waterloo for the first time through the pandemic.
Great. Okay, so I'll move on to your resume now. Well, thank you very much, James. That was wonderful. Can you now take us through your junior resume that we've got up on the screen here? What are some key things you like about your junior resume, why you think it stands out, and what you would have done differently? A lot of questions there, but.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm really happy with one of the hardest thing was condensing it into one page. It's really funny to think that in 1A I felt like I had so much information that was necessary that I was struggling to fit it all in one page, and now I have so many more qualifications, and it's like easier. So but yeah, I was really happy that I got onto one page. For the most part, the like each of the individual things have stayed the same. I still have like a summary of qualifications, work experience, volunteer experience, education achievements. So the structure has stayed the same for the most part, which I'm really happy about. As you can see, I had basically no engineering experience. I worked at a home hardware right next to my house, so that was my work experience. What I would change, I felt like I tried too hard to hype myself up. I don't want to say that I faked anything, but I made everything sound a little bit better than it is, and it comes across as a little bit showboaty. I think the most important thing is to let them know what you did and let it just speak for itself. Don't try and overplay the small things that you did. Even like if they were small, that's important. Just don't try and don't try and fit in too many big buzzwords. It starts to detract from it. Yeah.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Sure. What do you wish you had known when designing your resume for your first co-op job?
The hardest part about resume building is that it's really subjective. Everybody has their different style, and every employer has different things that they're looking for. Mm-hmm. And so what I wish I knew was to not build one resume and send it to everybody. Sometimes you have to tailor it a little bit. Sometimes you have to tailor it a lot, depending on what the employer is looking for and what you think they're looking for. And sometimes you get it completely wrong. But like, for example, a big company might not care so much about your specific interests and stuff like that, and more care about your actual qualifications. Whereas like a startup might want to see that, hey, you have so many interesting things about you, like you play sports, you love music and stuff like that. And so the thing that I wish I knew the most was definitely that your resume can change, and it can change within a week, and you have to be able to modify it and adjust it for what you're going for.
How did you find that kind of activity when you were going through your first year, as far as keeping your resume up to date?
It was okay. It was a little bit rushed, I felt. I hadn't built one like this. I got my first job in grade 11, and so I got my job, and then I forgot about my resume because I had a job,
Mhm.
which was not a good idea. You should always keep it updated. And so I found that when I first got to Waterloo, it was orientation week, and then all of a sudden, have you finished your resume? And it was like, whoa, this is intense. That's if you're 4 stream. If you're 8 stream, you have a little bit more time. But so I felt it a little bit rushed at the beginning, but that was mostly my fault. But other than that, it was okay. It gets a little bit busy around midterms, but by then you have your resume done. And there are a bunch of people helping you. You have like upper years critiquing it, and they're mandatory actually. Some of them you have to go to, others you can just drop in. So I thought it was okay. Other than the very beginning, I thought it was okay. But the very beginning can easily be avoided if you just put a little bit of time into doing some of it right now, and then it'll be much easier starting off.
That's great. Thank you so much, James. Okay, so if you've got questions for James regarding his resume and his experience, please put them into the Q&A and we'll address those later. Thank you very much, James.
Thank
And
you.
now we'll meet Jillian. So Jillian, if you could introduce yourself, the program you're in, and tell us a bit about your work experience that you've had as well.
Okay,
And maybe
so
even if you have a fun fact about yourself.
okay. I just finished my 1B management term. Um, so this is actually my first co-op job, working with lovely Waterloo staff to help incoming first years. Um, so yeah, my most important skill I feel like is communication because it's important to constantly check your emails for written communication, and also verbal communication is very important for every job, actually.
Great. Okay, ready to go onto your resume?
Yep.
Okay, so now if you could take us through your junior resume, which wasn't too long ago, right? That we've got up on the screen. Again, keeping in mind, what are some of the key things you like about your junior resume, why you think it stands out, and what you would have done differently?
So I actually made quite a few changes to this resume. I kept trying to update it throughout the application process. So a key thing is I had put in divider lines in between each section so that uh, it was more pleasing to the eyes and easier to quickly skim through,
Mm.
because the employers get lots of applications, so it's important for yours to put in the key points, bold words, so that when employers skim through your resume, they can easily see your uh, your best qualifications for the job. Um, I put in my skills as the first thing because I applied to many programming jobs, but I feel like for certain other jobs, I should have rearranged my resume to fit what they were looking for.
Okay, how would you have gone about doing that?
So certain other jobs were more related to management and communication. So I would have put my extracurricular experience over my skills and projects because my extracurricular experience demonstrated more coordination, managing clubs and team members rather than programming and using different software.
Okay. So you've just gone through the process, and hopefully your current employer has shared with you what was it about your resume that attracted them to say we want to interview her.
Uh, I
Or,
actually was
or
not
what do you
told.
okay. What do you think was some of the key features?
Um, I feel like having the keywords that they put into their job description was is very important. So on Waterloo Works, they put in a list of different skills they're looking for, and so if I actually bolded a lot of words in the description, like organization, oral communication under the peer tutoring one.
Mhm.
So I feel like by bolding these uh, keywords and letting them know that I have these skills, it's very important.
Okay, good. So again, this isn't that long ago, but what do you wish you had known when designing your resume for your first co-op job?
Um, Back in high school, uh, I was applying to some summer jobs, and back then I had a two-column resume,
Oh,
and I changed it here to a single column. So I'm actually interested in knowing what the employers like, whether it be single column or double column, if they like color or not.
mhm.
Um, I actually went to ask, I went to ask other of my friends if they knew anything about this, and I
Yeah,
feel like it would be very good to find out before you create your resume.
yeah. Did you find the answers to those questions?
Um, I heard that many traditional employers tend to like single column, no color.
Yeah.
Um, I kind of I put a little bit of color, but not too flashy so that it's not too distracting.
Mhm.
And I kept it as single column.
Good. Yeah. And it really does depend upon the industry that you're applying to.
Mhm.
Um, Traditional employers like it just the way you have it structured. A little bit of color is nice to have in there. Here I'm doing a resume critique, but it's hard not to do that when that's part of what I do. Keeping in mind too that the employers are looking at multiple resumes, right? So a
Mhm.
little color is nice. If they're going to print your resumes, it's going to be black and white. So it may make an initial impression when you do it initially on in the computer, but standard what you have here is quite acceptable by a number of employers. And again, students speaking with other engineering students, once you're on campus, when you talk to the senior students, they've gone through what you're going through now, they'll be able to give you some insight as to what the industry that you're in, what those employers are looking for. So you can start to switch up your resume geared on what's expected in the industry. But we'll always show you the standard way that you actually have yours done here. That's great. Looks good. Okay. Um, so when you're going into the interviews, what were the the selling features from your resume?
The main things were communication, mainly oral communication, and teamwork. Uh, a lot of the jobs require you to not only work with your supervisor, but with many colleagues and like project team members as well. So uh, knowing that I was a first year, they know that like I don't have many skills and many technical knowledge that they might need. So they're looking for me to have communication, to be quick with my learning skills so that I can um, help them with whatever they're doing.
Excellent. That's great. Well, thank you very much. Do you have more that you want to add, or are you okay?
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we're moving into the next portion of our hour, Q&A. If you have academic questions, there is a specific email address for you, and that's firstyear.engineering@uwaterloo.ca. If you have co-op questions, please go to virtual co-op consults, which are booked through Waterloo Works. And I understand that we have virtual drop-in appointments this week and going into next week for first-year students that will help you get started on that cover letter or your resume, start to work through discovering what your skills are that employers will be looking for. So again, the dates were Monday, July 20th to 31st. And these are virtual drop-in appointments. They're 15 minutes. You can get them the same day. I understand there may have been a bit of a hiccup with students getting signed on to these, so I'm going to look into that for you, and I'll get back to Daniela to let her know. You'll meet with a career leader who are trained by the Center for Career Action to look at your resume, to look at all your documents, to talk to you about work search preparation as well. And the virtual drop-ins run from 8:30 to 4 p.m. Monday to Friday. Thank you. And I think now we're going to open it up to Daniela, who is going to take charge of the Q&A.
Great. Thanks so much, Linda. And thank you, Jillian and James, for the information you've shared so far. I think it's been excellent, and it's really helpful to see your resumes. So please keep those questions coming in. We're answering those through typed responses, and we're going to ask as many as we can aloud as well. So I did want to start with you, Linda, just to expand a little bit on the option that students might have for finding their own co-op job outside of Waterloo Works. How can a student get a role approved if they've found something on their own that wasn't a job that was listed in Waterloo Works?
Okay, probably one of the easiest ways to start is when you're there in the fall, send a message through Waterloo Works. It comes back to a team of career advisors, and we'll set up a time to talk to you about what you have in mind. There are requirements for jobs that are arranged on your own, and all that information is buried in the co-op website. But we would go through that with you and just go through to make sure you have the 6 requirements. And if it meets all those specifications, there's a form that's an online form that you would fill in, submit to the team that I work with. And we're fairly quick in as far as going through the information, processing your form. And if we have any questions at all about it, we would reach out to you to ask those questions. But it's fairly simple. And the other neat thing for first-year students is that you can look at arranging your own job, and you can also look at the jobs in Waterloo Works as well. So you can do those simultaneously for your very first work term. We want to make it as easy for you as we can to get that first work term.
Okay, excellent. So I wanted to ask Jillian and James a quick question. And it's just about applying to jobs. So generally, like, how many jobs do you apply to? And then how many interviews does that translate to before you actually get your first job? So Jillian, maybe we could start out with you on that one.
Okay. I applied to as many as I could. So the first round, they allowed you to apply to 50. So I applied to 50 jobs. Um, they put like a difficulty level kind of that they're looking for, experience level. I feel like I didn't apply to that many beginner level jobs as I should have. I got one interview from the 50 that I applied to. But in the next round, I applied to more beginner jobs, and I got, I believe, 3 interviews from that.
Excellent. Thanks, Jillian. And James, was that about the same for you? Do you remember your first term? How many jobs did you apply to? And then how many interviews did you get from those applications?
Yeah, it was pretty much the same thing for me in my first term. I applied to a lot of jobs that I definitely was not qualified for. And I was specifically applying to jobs that would keep me in Aurora. But which wasn't that many. So I think I applied to around 30 in the first round. I got one interview, I believe, in main round. And then after that, I applied to, I think, about 50 more and got 3 or 4 more. Last term, I think I applied to around 40 in main round, and I got 4 interviews, I believe. So yeah, I know some of my friends got like higher percentages and stuff like that of jobs, but it's definitely applied to a lot when you're first getting in. Don't worry about getting too many interviews because you probably won't.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. We've actually been hearing that from a lot of students on the other Zoom events that we've been doing. Try to cast the net as wide as you can, and then, you know, go to all of those interviews, and, you know, hopefully it results in a job. So that's the goal, right? And did you find that it was hard to balance in your first term applying for jobs, doing your schoolwork, you know, preparing your resume? Do you have any tips for that, for the students who are going to be applying in the fall?
I would say get your resume done early if you're 4th-stream, because I had to do it like last minute pretty much. So that was difficult. The hardest part is right around midterms, when you have schoolwork, and then you have the impending midterms, and then you also have to be applying and potentially going to interviews. All of those things do kind of like everything comes at you at once. So right then it's tough, but other than that, everything kind of works out pretty okay.
Great. And Jillian, did you have anything, any tips that you could give around how to balance it all, especially as a new university student?
Yeah, so I'm in 8th stream, so I actually had a lot more time to get used to the university life. And I started making my resume really early, nearing the end of first term, because uh, I saw a lot of 4th stream students struggling to balance school and making their resume. So I decided to start off early and make my resume a lot earlier. And that was actually really helpful. I ended up changing my resume a lot. Uh, and it was helpful to get the final resume that I liked.
Awesome. That's great advice. And Linda, could you speak a little bit about the general timeline for co-op, and what that looks like, for 4th-stream or for 8th-stream? And I know we have a link that we can share in the chat as well that gives a little bit more insight into what that looks like for the incoming students.
Sure. Yeah, James experienced what it's like to be 4th-stream. It's like, welcome to Waterloo, and postings open next week. With the CFE course that I was referring to, it starts the very first week of your class, and it's a good preparatory way to get you into the program, because we start talking to you about your resume that first week. So as James and Jillian are saying, get your resume done now. Like, come in, get it critiqued by a career advisor or a career leader. These people are here to help you. So that's a really good thing to get done and kind of out of the way. Job postings, they start opening on September 14th for the 4th-stream students. And those of you who are in 8th-stream, well, you still have to do all of the CFE modules that we have. You don't actually have to worry about, as Jillian said, you don't have to worry about applying for jobs until January. So for September, postings open the 14th. Interviews for co-op actually start the last week of September, and they run through the month of October. Now we have a reading week in there, which is nice because nothing happens during that week. No interviews, no courses. So you've got a nice little break there, which is great. And then we have, as we go into the 3rd month, we find out, you know, who's got jobs, who's still looking, which companies are filled, which ones aren't. And then we continue to post. So it doesn't stop after that first 50 application round. We continue working with students right even into the next work term. So we're always here to support you to go that length. So the fall is pretty busy. You know, you're getting used to a new environment, whether you're on campus or not. It's busy. One of the things that we've introduced to CFE is a time management component. And I'm not sure if Jillian had that last year or not. She might have. And it's something to kind of help you if you don't have something already in place. So for the 8 stream students, while you are doing CFE for the fall, you're not doing any of the actual co-op activity. All of that will happen for you in the January term. But what it means for 8 stream is that you could actually spend the fall polishing your resume, creating cover letters, and actually doing a job search in the fall, because summer job postings, and a lot of those are really good co-op jobs, they start coming out in December, January. So you can start to approach employers and get your job actually arranged before, so you don't have to go through all that activity in the winter term.
Great. Okay. And we have put a link in the chat there to the site that lists out those important dates for co-op. So hopefully that'll be helpful as well for the students.
Thank you.
Great. So Jillian and James, what do you think from your perspective is most important, or some of the important things when you're looking for co-op jobs and when you're being interviewed or your resumes are being assessed? So for example, are they looking at your grades? Are they looking at personal projects that you may have completed, professional experience, volunteer experience, your hobbies? Is there anything that surprised you maybe when you did your first interviews that they ended up asking you about, or that you were surprised that they didn't ask you about? Maybe Jillian, we'll start with you, or?
Yeah,
Great.
sure. Uh, they they only looked at my skills for all of my interviews. They didn't really care about my grades. Same with my friends. Their grades didn't really matter. It was what skills they put on their resume. And if they had a cover letter, it's what they talked about there that mattered. Um, yeah, so they asked more in depth about my skills because I just listed them on my resume. So they asked, oh, exactly what do you know about this programming language or this software? And how how comfortable are you with using it? Stuff like that.
Okay. And we did actually have a specific question for you, Jillian, about programming. And maybe, did you have experience with programming languages before you even started, or was it things that you were learning in first term that you were ending up putting on your resume and being asked about in those interviews?
I actually took programming in high school where I learned Java and HTML, CSS. But I also learned Java during my 1B term. There's actually a programming course for learning Java, and I learned Excel VBA during my 1A term. So mix
Okay.
of both.
Okay. Awesome. And then James, for you, what was there any surprises or anything that you thought people asked you about that you didn't expect, or tips you have related to things to include on your resume from that perspective?
Yeah, my experience is probably a little bit different than Jillian's. I haven't had any technical interviews, so my employers have focused somewhat on the skills, but mostly on work experience. I don't think I've ever been asked about my academics or anything that I put on my resume like that. Um, Definitely mostly about work experience. Although I have had a lot of questions about extracurriculars and interests. I remember my last employer, I put on this song that I played tenor sax in jazz band. And so my last employer asked me about that and asked me a bunch of jazz songs that I had never heard of, but that was interesting. So yeah, I would say it definitely depends on the interviewer. A lot of technical jobs are going to be asking you for, can you do this? We need to know. Whereas a lot of other positions are going to be, the interview at that point, they're already aware that you could fill the position, and they're just mostly trying to see if you're a good match for them, personally. So.
Awesome. And did you want to add to that at all, Linda?
Yes, definitely.
Just some tips that you might have? Yeah, thank you.
You could tell. That is so true, what James was saying, because I know of a student who had all the skills the employer is looking for. They're not so worried about where you got your skills, just as long as you say on your resume you have the skills. Like you may have got one of your skills from a project that you finished in a week, and that's excellent. Make sure you put it on your resume because it's experience and it is a skill that the employer wants. This particular student had, again, all the skills the employer wanted, or most of the skills, but this person played ice hockey, and it was a winter work term, and it was in Granbury, Alberta, and I happen to be married to the person now, so it's okay, I can talk about him. So the interviewer, when they first came in, talked to him a little bit about the job, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then the rest of the interview was about what position do you play in hockey. And so that was the interview. And you're right, James, it's all about, can I get along with you? And in those interviews, you typically are interviewed by the hiring manager or the person you're going to be reporting to. And they want to know if there's a good connection between the two of you. And so in this case, there was, and he got the job for the winter term. I mean, he learned all the additional skills, but it's sometimes students don't have room on their resume, or they don't really want to include the extracurricular. It's a good thing to put it on there because you never know what the background is of the employers that are looking at your resume.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, one of my friends worked, one of his last jobs was hiring the next students for like the next term that would be taking over his job. And he said that his boss wouldn't really look at the skills and stuff. He would assume that if you're applying here, you already meet the requirements. And so he would look only at your extracurriculars and see what stood out about you, and then look back to the qualifications, see, okay, you have met them. And then when it came time for the interview, it was only on, is this person a good match for me? Because I expect that they're going to be able to do what I asked them, or they're going to be able to learn. So, but yeah, it was mostly just, is this person going to be able to get along with me? Can we work together?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think that's great advice. And personally, I've experienced that often too in job interviews. It's those little things that are in your hobbies or your interests that jump out and you end up talking about for the majority of the interview versus sometimes your skills and such. So a couple of you mentioned cover letters. Do you, Jillian and James, and then Linda will go to you as well, do you have any advice for writing a cover letter and how to make it compelling to actually secure that interview? Have you had some success doing that?
I'm not sure how much I can talk about this. I've never gotten an interview for a job that I wrote a cover letter for. I've only gotten ones for ones that I haven't. So, but I would say follow the template for a cover letter. Just kind of introduce yourself, how you heard about the position, what you can offer for the position, and then close it. Don't try and make it too fancy. Just follow the script. And then I would say what you want to do is your resume should say all the stuff that you can do, and your cover letter should say more about why and who you are as a person, and the fact that you're like super passionate about this, and just like it shows your interest. Like your resume will say that you can do this, and then your cover letter says that I want to do this.
Awesome. And Jillian, have you had to write any cover letters yet, or do you have any advice around that?
Yeah, I actually wrote quite a few cover letters. Out of like the 5 interviews I got the past term, I think 2 of them I actually wrote cover letters for. So I like to keep this nice format, like what James said, an introduction, and then I picked 2 or 3 key skills that they're looking for, and I wrote a paragraph for each of those skills in the cover letter. And I heard a lot of my friends wrote one cover letter and put that for all the jobs, and I feel like that's a bad idea. I wrote separate cover letters for each of the jobs I was applying to, and I feel like it's a lot better because it tailors to that job, and the employers can tell if you're just copying and pasting it for every job.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I find that when I have students apply and I know it's just like a standard cover letter that they've just replaced the job title on, So it does make a difference. And we also heard on one of our other calls that some students don't take the time to apply to jobs with cover letters. So sometimes your odds might be better applying to those and taking the time to write those custom cover letters. So Linda, are there maybe some tips you want to add, and any workshops or resources available to students to learn how to do good cover letters?
Yeah, there's definitely lots of resources. There are workshops in the fall for cover letter writing. You can actually book an appointment for that as well. The Career Hub, which is part of the Center for Career Action, has a great resource section on building your resume, writing cover letters, taking interviews, everything that you really need to get through co-op. Everything that Jillian and James have said is bang on. You don't want to do a generic cover letter. I used to hire co-op students for our department as well, and we required a cover letter, obviously, for the job. And I would get some that were very generic and others that were very tailored, and you could just read the passion that the student had about being a career advisor. And that's what you want your cover letter to do. Like James says, you want it to explain to the employer why you want to be in this position. What are you hoping to get out of that job? I always interviewed all the students that applied. I figured I'd give them all a good shot because they're all first year students and you need a break. You need a chance, right? And I'll tell you that the generic cover letters, it was a very generic interview because the interest wasn't really there. They just threw their package in with that cover letter. Whereas the students who took the time to tailor their cover letters, and that's really what you want to be doing, that passion came out during the interview. The interest in my job was there. So from an employer's perspective, you do want to tailor the cover letter. It shouldn't be any more than a page. It's kind of like a hamburger structure where you've got the top bun is sort of this is why I'm applying for a particular job. The middle paragraphs, as James said, you're identifying specific skills, and Jillian. And then the bottom layer is closing it off. So that's how I keep that analogy. It's like a hamburger.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome advice as well. And good to hear that those workshops will be running as well in the fall too for students. So I want to switch track a little bit and talk about some of the extracurriculars or things that are available to students to help build up some skills and experience as a first year engineering student. Jillian and James, maybe you could speak a bit about student design teams or even like extracurriculars you've been involved with or your friends have, NSOC. And maybe some of the skills that help you add elements to your resume as a first year student.
I haven't personally been on a design team. The only extracurricular that I've done so far is I've played Ultimate Frisbee last 2 terms, which was pretty cool. I would say from my friends, design teams are pretty sick. They and I think they go a long way with employers. Some of the bigger ones are pretty high profile, and it's not too much work. I don't know. I can't really speak too much about it, but they're definitely, if you're interested, they're definitely super cool, and you should definitely look at them. They're always looking for people. But yeah, I don't know. I can't talk about it too much.
Okay, no problem. And I think that's a great point to mention as well, that there are, the intramural sports teams and things to get involved with that way, which you can list on your resume as a hobby or interest, and you never know what interest that might pique also. Jillian, did you want to share your experiences?
I joined the design team and I did not participate in any extracurriculars, the opposite as James. The design team, I didn't really get to do a lot because I only participated in 1 term, but I did put it on my resume at one point for documentation because that's what I learned on the design team. So I put it on for one of the jobs that listed documentation as a skill they were looking for. And besides that, I had friends who were part of programming clubs. So they learned how to make practical apps and stuff for your phone. I think they put theirs in their resume, yeah, as projects.
Awesome. Thanks, Jill. Do you guys want to speak a little bit about the competition for roles? Do you find that a lot of you and your classmates are applying for the same jobs and there's a lot of competition? What's that environment like in your program? James, do you want to start us off with that one?
Yeah, at least in systems is a great culture. It's a great community. There's not a lot of like it's healthy competition, I would say. When it comes to academics, I really haven't felt any. When it comes to jobs, systems has a really wide variety of positions that you can go for. For the most part, people probably go for software. But like one of my friends has only had hardware jobs. He loves it. A lot of people also go for project management. The issue with project management is there aren't very many positions, and a lot of the time, people that are hiring for project management want to see that you are capable in the field before they hire you for a management position. And so those positions are very highly sought after. And so a lot of the time you are interviewing against like your classmates and stuff like that. It can get interesting when you and your friend are both in the running for the same position, but it helps when neither of you get the job. So nobody gets hard feelings about it. But yeah, no, it's not too bad. Systems, at least, I can't speak for management, but systems has a great culture. And while there is a little bit of competition, it's very friendly, and everybody knows each other, and we're all on the same team. So
awesome. And Jillian, what's it like for you in your program in terms of competition and applying for roles?
Actually, management has a very nice culture as well. We have, for my cohort, we had like around 100 students compared to the 200 plus in other programs. So we all knew each other, very friendly with each other. I didn't compete with my friends for jobs, but when I was looking at their interview schedules, I saw some familiar names. They actually helped each other out. The people who went first told the others what happened in the interviews, and gave some tips and tricks to hopefully help one of us get the job.
That's fantastic. Linda, I wanted to ask you a quick question. We had some students asking about how residence works. So is it, if it's a 4-month term, but they're, in residence for 8 months, do they move in, move out? And if they wanted to come back, do they go back to the same room? How does that process work? And I think you're just on mute there, so we'll just need to unmute you. Sorry about that.
With the residents, so if the 8 stream students would stay in the same room for the full eight months. 4 stream students, you would come back in the May term, but you wouldn't necessarily come back to the same room. So when you finish off your full academic term, you would have to move everything out of residence. And then when you're back, back in May, you're in a new room.
Okay. And for this year, it is a little bit unique. So and maybe we don't know yet, and we can share a link to the coronavirus update website where the most current information is posted. But if a co-op term was going to be virtual and a student was on 4 stream, could they potentially stay in res for the 8 months? Do we know yet, or is that still being decided?
I don't know that for sure. Typically, students are expected to move out. Again, it depends on what room availability there is. They would probably it's better to check on the website.
Yeah.
Because I don't do the housing part of it. So.
Okay, yeah. So we'll share a link for that. But it is a consideration and something that a few students have been asking about. You know, once they're sort of in res, if they are coming in September, the option might be there to stay for their first co-op term, so you have a good Wi-Fi connection. You're on campus. You've got access to everything. Even though classes are virtual, the residences are still open. So there might be an option for that as well. And Jillian and James, could you speak a little bit to what it's been like for you, sort of, you know, subletting or where you've chosen to live? I think, James, you mentioned you wanted to stay close to home. So could you tell us what that's been like?
Yeah, res was, I don't know, res was a lot of fun. I had a good time. I don't know about the other residences. I was in U Waterloo Place, UWP. It was about the perfect thing for me. My own room, lock on the door. It was really dead. So when I wanted to get sleep, there was nothing in my way. I know places like MKV and V1 and CMH a little bit are a little bit more rowdy than my res was, but it was a lot of fun. Last term, I was living with friends. I was living on Leicester Street, which is just down the road from Waterloo. It's like a 5-minute walk, probably even less. That was a great time, living with like friends that were in the same program as me. Um, I definitely, when it comes to co-op, in first term, I wanted to stay at home. Now I want to be branching out and going to different places. When it comes to school terms, I definitely like being in Waterloo to do them, and I am moving back to Waterloo for this term, although it's all online. I just find that the environment is a lot more suited for getting work done than my house is, when I have a lot more distractions here. So yeah.
Great. And Jillian, can you share what it's been like for you so far?
Yeah. So I lived in Village 1, V1. Uh, it's separated into separate buildings. My building was generally really quiet, so it was a good place for me to study and I could get some sleep. Um, I other My other friends living in V1 didn't have such a great experience. Their place was a little louder, but they did get to meet more people because it was louder. Um, yeah, so uh, it was very nice living experience. I actually got a place for the fall, but because it's online now, I sublet it out to other individuals, and I'm choosing to live at home.
Okay, great. Thank you. Linda, I wanted to go over to you for a second, kind of a more technical Waterloo Works question. But how do students know when they've gotten a job, when they are the successful candidate? How does that matching process work?
So the at the end, so the 4-stream students at the end of, actually it's the first week of November, when results are revealed. So as you go through the interview process, employers are asked to rank their candidates. So 1 being their first choice, and then what they will often do is rank the other students 2s, because they can rank anywhere from 1 to a 10. And it gives the employer an opportunity that if they don't secure their first choice, they at least have an opportunity to maybe match with one of the other students they've ranked it to. So employers will submit their rankings first to us. And then in that beginning of November, students have an opportunity to go into their Waterloo Work system, see the results of their interviews. And what they do see is if they have an offer from an employer, they will see that. If it's anything like from a 2 to a 10, it will just say that they were ranked by that employer. And then the students at that point will submit their own numbers. So if they see an offer and that's the one they want to take, they'll put a 1 beside it and then rank the other ones as 2s potentially. And then our system does its match run up thing. And the next day they log back into Waterloo Works, and on their landing page or their dashboard, it will actually tell them if they've been matched with a job. And so we do everything electronically through Waterloo Works.
Okay, awesome. And are there ways? Oh, sorry, Linda.
I was going to say the ranking system is one that takes a couple of terms to go through till you get used to how it actually works.
Okay, perfect. Yes, and as an employer who uses it, I think it's a great intuitive system, and ranking and everything, it works really well. So it's a really great system to use, and hopefully the students would agree as well, Jillian and James. And another student was asking, are there ways to contact the employers before the application period? So maybe if you see a job, but you had some questions about it before you apply, is there a way to do that, or not really, kind of just apply and then maybe ask those questions if you're selected for an interview?
Yeah, there really isn't a way for students to reach out to employers in that method, but what the student could do is send a message through Waterloo Works to a career advisor saying, I have a question about a specific job. And then we would reach out to our field staff, because we have over 45 staff who work across Canada in various locations, and they could reach out to that employer to get that question answered for the student.
Okay, excellent. Jillian and James, could you speak a little bit to the average pay in a first co-op term, and what that is like for your program, what the range is that you've heard, if you don't mind?
I can speak for myself. I was making, I think, around $17 an hour in my first co-op job. My second one was more around 20, I believe. I think the average for my first position was around 17 or 18, and then second was around 19 or 20. That was I'm not sure if it was for my year or just for my program. For the upper range, one of my good friends is making $35 an hour. So there's definitely a wide range there. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And Jillian, in management, what would it be in the first term? What's the general range?
I'm actually not sure. I haven't asked anyone. But while I was applying, some employers put the price, not price, the payment in their description. And it was around 15 to 18 for first years.
Okay. And Linda, is there a listing somewhere online that gives students the general range, or is that within Waterloo Works in case they're interested?
It is actually, they can go to the cooperative education website, and within that site there